그래서 가서 지다 람기 지지 람기 남샤 되게야 네 지금 내가 밖에 고려해서 송료도 가르쳐서나 기부 지금 상지 송비게 최근에 시면에 아니 지금 탑 원도다 아니 그래서 겨치마 하다미 원요고 방토에게 치도 송바 야나 아니 탈바토베 치도 송바 양 탐지kim바 상지고 방토에 치도 송바 양야레스 제가 디네자 상지 송비치 탐제 안 셈쟁기 되어 코나 주베 치도 송바레 제가 셈쟁기 된디 아니 내가 원요고 바데다 고바토지 텔라 디기투비아 타도 안 탈바다 탐지kim바 고바토에 데레스 제가 상지 취역하는 송베나 디던다 송바레 제가 디네자 디숨디다 람림 된 기보숨이 람미림 바날이야 뒤나데 도스tin 뒤로래 제가 지게 어도 직시해서 좀.
Good morning. Last night we started to look at this chapter on how to practice the paths of the three types of persons. We started to look at the first major outline, how all the Buddhist teachings are contained in the paths of the three types of persons. So in here we saw that everything that the Buddha taught was taught to bring benefit to others. And the benefit is expressed both in terms of temporary benefit, the temporary happiness of higher rebirths or higher status, as well as the leading towards the attainment of lasting happiness, the lasting happiness of the state of definite goodness. And definite goodness itself has two types, that of complete liberation from the suffering realms of samsara, or the state of omniscience, Buddhahood. And another way that the entirety of the Buddha's teachings can be contained is within the trainings associated with practitioners of varying capacities, those of initial, intermediate, and great capacity, or beings of the small, middle, and great scopes. So we saw that there are these two ways to understand the entirety of the teachings. And the trainings in the Lamrim are those that present the graduated sequence by which one trains in order to attain enlightenment. So one thereby engages in the trainings associated or shared with beings of initial, and based on that, intermediate capacity, and then finally, great capacity.
람세다 아니 기부충은 투모의 람세딩 아주게 가상 가데샤버스네 기부충었네 당 가사 니지게 개와치마 하다 미고방 원dio 고방 점 돈도 열세 돈도에 탈바드 탐지kimbe 삼마다와체 아니 원도 개와치마 원dio 고방 토고도 선배 디 돈열세 디 돈돈열세 아니 디네게 디 토베가 돈다 규 아니 수름소야다 아니 짐바타야 쇠버콤이야 아니 전주점이야 되네 아니 지게 엔덴주기 류된체와 삼다다 덴주 류디에 당고서야 된체와 삼다야 아니 치워미다와 삼다야 되게 근데 되게야 아니 기부 충유 람라고레스 기부 충유 람레스 기부 충유 람 뭐에디 디레스 가상 디시 네 기부 충유다 투모의 람세디 네 가르치기르시네 그런 군노리야 아니 개와잖아 콜위 동아를 줘서 타르와 토고도 셈비 타르와 동이 탑디기 뜸바여 봐 야나 아니 셈자 탐지게 되는 사유 고마 토고도 셈비게 동이 뜸바여 봐시 단디 타르바다 탐지 캠비 고마 토야기 돈달이야 아니 당보 냠내 제디 아니 지게 자 개와치마 아니 지게 타르바도 고 디냠내 집발라 체델이야 아니 탈바 탐지기 먹고 뭐도 토마토네 개와 치매 된데라 냠는 제국으로 되는자다 니든다 미유조데 탈바 탐지기 먹고 뭐 토에 삼다제 안디든다라 아니 원료고 뭐 토에 유 아니 가서게 가서래 주름 써야 돼 아니 진바다 쇠바다 네 지금 준비 좀이야 온라인에 치워매다와 삼다야 안 단식을 류트 된체와는 계체와 삼다야디 디 람데 다기고 투모 기부 중원의 투모의 람레 마도 기부 중원의 람 말에서지 다디 람군의 자고 말 기부 중원의 투모의 람세마 미다 람군의 자고 말에 람군의 말에 기부 중원 람군의 말에 기부 중원의 람디야 자고 말에지 기부 중요했다 투모에 남라게 됐습니다. 이 얘기다 캐바로치다 기부 중요의 투모에 남 기부 중요의 남오에 세야지다 기부 중요의 투모에 남세야 이디 캐바로도시 네가 상가도 쉬사로만
Moreover, last night we looked at a practitioner. There are two types of practitioner of initial capacity or small scope. There is a genuine practitioner of initial capacity. Such a person has as their goal a genuine determination to achieve an excellent rebirth again in their next life. That is their goal in which they're based upon which they engage in their spiritual endeavors. So their meditation, so as to accumulate the causes that will lead to excellent rebirths, is they will first reflect on this precious human rebirth, recognizing just what they have attained, in particular in terms of its great value, but its rarity as well as its impermanence. So that was the summary, a summation of the previous chapter that was looked at. Generating this recognition of the great value of this opportunity, but that it is impermanent. In the same meditation, they then engage in the cultivation of the causes that will lead to further excellent rebirths. These are principally ethical restraint of abandoning physical and verbal non-virtue, as well as generosity, patience, joyous perseverance, and making excellent prayers. So for such a genuine practitioner of initial capacity, they cultivate a path of initial capacity or path of small scope. But whilst this is called a path, it is not an actual mental path, but it is etymologically or terminologically called a path, but it's not an actual path. Then we looked at the second type of practitioner of initial capacity. So this is a practitioner who is not an actual practitioner of initial capacity because their motivation is remarkably different, but they are engaging in the trainings shared with the practitioner of initial capacity. So such a practitioner has as a motivation not the attainment of a further excellent rebirth, which is the motivation of a genuine practitioner of initial capacity. Rather, their motivation is either liberation from samsara in its entirety or the attainment of enlightenment so as to liberate all suffering mother sentient beings. That is their motivation, liberation or enlightenment. But recognizing that the attainment of such a lofty goal will take extensive effort over a number of lifetimes, they recognize that they have to accumulate the causes for further good rebirths. So therefore, their meditation is the same. The motivation behind the meditation is vastly different, but the meditation is the same. They reflect on their precious human rebirth, but that it is impermanent, and thereafter they meditate on ethical restraint, generosity, patience, joyous perseverance, and making prayers. So such a practitioner then is engaging in the trainings shared with a practitioner of initial capacity. They do not cultivate a path of a being of initial capacity, or their consciousness is not labeled as or called a path of initial capacity, because they do not have the goal of a genuine practitioner of initial capacity, but they rather are engaging in or cultivating the trainings shared with a practitioner of initial capacity. So that too we looked at last night.
나는 마디리 쉐딘 마당서 기부 중앙세데 간시레세 디고 마시야레 니자다딘 마 시텔라 기부 중앙 개발제네 세델라 체시르 미제바라 체치미 원도 체치미에서 토리기 폰소 돈도 열심히 니 윤남 주발라 주비치르데스 Lamrim le sashi.
Lama Tsongkhapa then continues. So in the handout, in the ebook, it's at the top of page 77, the middle of the second paragraph. In the published book, it's the very last sentence on page 67. Special persons of lesser capacity do not act primarily for the rewards of this life. Instead, they pursue the excellence of high rebirth in future lives, and not just change it a bit, and engage in the causes of that. So we see here at the beginning of the sentence, it says, special persons of lesser capacity. So here we can then call to mind there are two types of persons of lesser capacity. One being referred to as special, and one as a mere person of lesser capacity. So of these two types, the special person of lesser capacity and the mere person of lesser capacity. The second type, the mere person of lesser capacity, we only briefly mentioned last night. But this refers to someone who is not thinking beyond this life. Their focus is solely on this life. Their focus is solely on overcoming this life's mundane problems and experiencing the mundane pleasures of this life. So their focus is solely on achieving the pleasures and overcoming the problems of this one life. They are not thinking beyond this life. So that is a mere person of initial or lesser capacity. Then the person that's referred to here, the special person of lesser capacity, what makes them special is that unlike the mere person of initial capacity, the special person has abandoned striving for this life's pleasures and to overcome this life's problems. Whereas the person of mere initial capacity, they are striving to achieve this life's pleasures and overcome this life's problems. That is their focus of all their endeavors. Whereas a special person of initial capacity, they are focused on achieving another excellent rebirth, as well as not only an excellent rebirth, but an excellent rebirth that is marked with, is qualified by having many excellent qualities, such as material wealth and so forth. So what principally differentiates these two people is the focus or the extensiveness of their outlook. The mere person of initial capacity, their focus their outlook is limited to the constraints of the parameters of this mere life. Whereas a special person of initial capacity, they have a far more extensive outlook. They're looking beyond this life. And in fact, the achievement of good rebirths is their primary focus.
Dine zada din ma sungdo gebu chungo kebar jense de gebu chungo kebar jenni sede de gebu chungo kebar jense di samlo kartang gorasene cedila checher mijeba sede cedila ge zo ma jeba da cedi dondala digiruye dungase jawa jigoruwa inade zo jigo 말해죠 checher mijeba sen zo di dondala changa mijeba je ane gare jigorsene cechime 토르기 punso dondo yer신스 개와 치마다 라다 미고 모토지 덴델이야 아니 punso 세되다 덴델이야 라다 미기 아니 튀겨 로죄다 디기디게 안 요야리야 니도ndo 예고래지르다 기부주 중고 개발전 데네 도ndo 예되게 다 기부 간사텔다 기부 중 개발전세우라 개발전 데네레서.
So in the sentence, Lama Tsongkhapa expresses clearly the meaning of a person, a special person of lesser capacity. They do not act primarily for the rewards of this life. So there is a still focus on achieving pleasures of this life and overcoming problems of this life. So I as a translator in the previous segments, I didn't say that correctly. So there is some focus on achieving the rewards of this life, but it's not primary. It is very much secondary. Rather, their primary focus is in the next sentence. Instead, they pursue the excellence of higher rebirth in future lives and engage in the causes of that. So the excellence of higher rebirth refers to not only striving to achieve an excellent rebirth, but also to have it qualified by many excellent features, such as material sufficiency and so forth.
나 세치메기 토레기 원디가 토레스는 원디가 고반 디토블 디텐리아 푼순소바스 푼순소바다 루이다 디헨다 아니카소레 튀겐다 데네기 푼순소바데 돈돈이르 디 돈돈이르 외바자 다디 디주베게 돈달라 디 균남 주발라 주비치르시데 디 주베게 돈달야 아니 냠네지고레 에시데 지사다 개와치마 디 루이팅 원디가 고반 토야치 수팀소야 덴델이야 안지게 가소레 아마저 튀겐티게 야보야 된달이야 안지게 인지메냠네 제알라 소바다 내 원바 상와라 소바게 알레 세베냠네 제알라 소바 아니 디니게 운도시네 귀디게 주야레 베즈치고레 에제 지산 디니게 디귀남 주발라 주비치르스네 디 냠네 지고레 에제 지산 기부 총원해야 되다 기부 총원 개발전해야 돼.
So this person, the special person of initial capacity, so they engage in the accumulation, as you see at the end of the sentence, for the causes to achieve an excellent higher rebirth. So they will engage in the ethical restraint of abandoning the non-virtues of body and speech, because that is the primary cause that leads to an excellent rebirth in their next life. But they don't only strive in the training of ethical restraint, but they also want to have the excellences of or the favorable circumstances in their next life, such as, therefore, they engage in accumulation of the cause of generosity to ensure the excellence of material abundance in future lives. They will engage in accumulation of the cause of patience to ensure that their sense powers are complete and they have good relationships with others, and so forth. So in this way, they engage in the primary cause, the accumulation of the primary cause that will lead to an excellent rebirth, ethics, as well as the companion causes that will lead to the favorable circumstances to ensure that not only do they attain a good rebirth, but that good rebirth is marked by abundant favorable circumstances. So this is what they strive in, the accumulation of these causes for their future lives. This is their primary focus.
나는 저기 기부 충유 람세디다 기부 충유 개발전 디수기 냠내 제기다 먼저 진바다 추준서봐 냠내 제들의 기부 충유기다 기부 충유 람세오다 기부 충유 개발전 디기 냠내 지고로와 먼저 기부 충유 점디기다 냠내 디삼다 냠내 지고 말와 제가 제자다 기부 충유기 람세디 기부 충유 개발전 디기 냠내 제기다 람세고 그래.
And of these two types of person of lesser capacity, it's the one who's called a special person of lesser capacity, the one just spoken about now. That person does accumulate what is called a path of a person of initial capacity. Again, it's only labeled as such, labeled a mental path, but the person of special initial capacity who achieves that. The mere person of lesser capacity, so the one who's striving just for the pleasures of this life and to overcome the problems of this life, they do not achieve a path of a person of lesser capacity.
다지서 기부 충원 잠세단 기부 충원 개발전에서 니니 가서 삼로당탕기 돈에 예화를 지거로 받아 지 가르세는다 기부 충원 잠세대 그런 게다 지 세티잠기 소소라랑기다 소소라랑게 세티잠기 세텔리아 누가세야다 세텔리아 안디기 주비아 강아세 디기 주비아게다 최외 튕겨 주야라서 되네 삼단에겐 다디 기부 충원 잠시마 삼로 되네시마도 다투고 말아 진짜데 기부 충원 잠시거로 다 기부 충원 개발전에서 디기 나디네 삼론 마선 개체스나지 오다디 체 디잠기 소소 누가세야다 디기 주고월데 이나 개와치마세야디 다 난송을 개바이나 냐바다 이다 둔조라서 개바네 데 강하다 안지게 소소 강하세게 탑라 메디겐 안지게 강하 망한용에 동아 망한용에 강하이 도와 지산 콘조 동아 나송가 될 때네다 하다 미디게 배 야고레시아스 그래서 소소게 동아지가 내가 강하시나 강하세게 탑라 미여봐 안에 탑시시야 여봐 소소게 튀에 가리네 줍투야다 데니기 여봐자 데레다 원dio 고바 하다 미고바네 배 야고레도 지사다 개와치마 원dio 고바지 토고도 선배다 제 데니게 원dio 개와치마 원dio 고바들 연대 통 디 되냐게 듬바게 디 토고도 선배게 삼다제 안지사 디 토야게 돈다 데니게 삼다제 디 돈다라 토야게 돈다라 계주를 냠는 제트에 가사디다 네 삼론 마사나고 나송의 동아래 타지네 데레 디기 양아지 양아 죽투야 되는 삼로 개체 체디자만 베개와 지마야 되니게 오도 샘페 삼나 다투고 가자 디 삼로데 개체와 제거라 제사디 기부 충우레데이네 대시 기부 충우 점 딜레고 삼로 개체야 다투고 가자 개발 됐어 연대를 마서에 야가지 연대 개발도 봐봐서 연대 체와 자가 들어와다 제사 이제 기부 충우 개발전에서 되고 삼로 다한게 돈에 연대 야가로 여봐자다 개발전에서 되고
Hopefully then it's clear from this explanation that what primarily differentiates a mere person of initial capacity and a special person of initial capacity is their way of thinking. In particular, whether their focus is primarily on this life or primarily on their next life. Or to express that differently, whether their focus is primarily on attaining the temporary happinesses and pleasures of this life, or whether their focus is primarily on attaining the temporary happiness and pleasures of their future lives. Whether their focus is primarily on overcoming the problems and difficulties of this life, or whether their focus is primarily on ensuring that there are less problems and difficulties in their future life. So to develop this outlook of a person, of a special person of initial capacity, requires additional prior reflection on the sufferings of the lower realms. Such a person who does develop become an actual or genuine practitioner of initial capacity, they will have reflected well on the sufferings of the lower realms and recognized that such a rebirth potentially awaits them. And through having meditated on the sufferings of the lower realms to the extent that they have a genuine determination to prevent their possible falling into those lower realms when death comes, they will be striving to accumulate the causes that will both prevent that from happening, but will actually lead to ensuring a further good rebirth, a rebirth similar to this. So another way then to, in brief, express the difference between a mere person of initial capacity and a special person is the quality of their outlook. Whether what drives them is the parameters of just this one life, looking just through this period that lies before one of this life, or whether one is primarily focused on beyond this life. So it's very clear, a special person of initial capacity has a far broader outlook, a less narrow mind. So therefore, what we are trying to develop in our meditations is this broader outlook. And this broader outlook, looking beyond this life, not being so distracted by, overwhelmed by this life's problems and attainment of this life's pleasures, this is the special quality that marks out this special person of initial capacity.
Bendigo da jibu chungu kebache jibu chungu namchadi da Tsongkhapa sungus Lamrim nalaya de Tsongkhapa Lamrim les ne garso Lamrim gi nala garso ngasne Geshe Thubten Rabten khorwe dewa zamda la ranyi dundu nyerjeba deni jibu tamara shes.
Lama Tsongkhapa's source for his presentation is then presented, and the source is Lama Atisha's Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. Whoever pursues by any means the happiness of samsara alone, and I'll just change the word, striving for his own benefits, should be known as the least of all beings, or the least of beings.
Zadan Geshe sido jibu gansadi Geshe Thubten Rabten sida Gandagi khorwe dewa zamdala sida jesnada khorwe dewa sedi anzu hada mi dewa khorwe dewa hada mi dewa zamlya nji döndö yeje kaso khorwe dewa sida tarbadan tamjikime dewa sigo mata khorwe dewa jesnada ta khorwe dewa hada mi ko ma de zam döndö yeje di döndala khorwe dewa zamdala de zam döndö yer ane di tobe기 된다라 안지 직당보데 탑네 강기 강다기스는 되네기 탑 디토예기 된다 탑 냠len 지겐시고 제가 가사 될래다 지겐 대안에 라니 된도 되냐 봐 소소 라니 된다라 라니 다 개와치 말하다 미고 뭐도 디디기도 토고도 셈베 대점도 냐제 안디 아니 주예기 된다라 탑 아니 지김바다 주름라서 냠len 지겐 가사데 and give chungore, dini give tamarsies, give tamares, the chungore, tamarsies.
The verse serves then as a source to show the validity of what Lama Tsongkhapa has composed above. Whoever pursues by any means, so whatever the means is, but it would be the means that has been presented. So it would be someone who's either accumulating some or all of the required causes. The indispensable cause is that of ethical restraint, but the other means or methods, the word can be translated as methods, would be generosity, patience, and so forth. So these are the means to achieve the happiness of samsara only. So this shows that the person's goal is not to transcend samsara, to not abandon or eradicate their own individual samsara, but they are still content with remaining within samsara, and therefore are striving for the happinesses that are bound within the samsaric experience. In other words, for a good rebirth, a rebirth as a human or God. Then the third line, so just change the first word, striving for his own benefit. So this person has a focus on achieving their own benefit. They have a determination. So this word striving is in the Tibetan because it shows that they have a determination. It's not merely something that they're hoping will come about, but they are making some effort to achieve this goal. And then for his own benefit, so his own, so this one's own benefit, this is emphasized again in the Tibetan. So one's own benefit alone, you could perhaps say. This is emphasized that their focus is on their own good rebirth. So their focus, whilst more extensive than a mere person of initial capacity, their focus is on their own benefit, and that benefit, though, would only be attained within the experience of samsara. And then it concludes with, should be known as the least of beings.
Dele and di tarbe go want to yachi do nyamne je de kibu jing cha ngorwa da di na de dang ju ge khoye dunga le de che ane ngondyo go wa de da topje ge na ne tarba san yi go wa de ne wo le tarba di na de dang ngondyo go wa ji to tama sha lo ji san tama ngondyo go wa toye de zam dun dun ye che ane ji di toye ge dun da la jawa le be ju ji ge wa zeng gen di da 타마 세지사 타마 세디고 네 약쇼지 징제 타마제 데 중국어로 지사 약쇼데 가르스네 산지고 방 디토비하게 된다를 비스 중간에 기부 첨보세로 와다 첨보 약쇼제 다 징고방 토비하게 징디 타르베고 마데제 디잠 토비하게 된던 예지 비스 중간에 기 간사들 기부 징세데로와 다 톱자 타마딩아제 데 하다 미고방 코르웨 대와 하다 미고방 디기디다 먼저 고바디다 톱자디 타마디지 다디 토베게 된다라 베 디잠 토베게 된다라 베주치 등인데 기부들다 기부 타마디지 지자 랍징 타신데 타마세데 데니기 삼단데 기부 타마데레 세데 임바다오 셰바시야 세티스고.
And to look further at this expression, the least of beings. So what does it refer to be the least of beings? The supreme amongst beings are those who have a determination to become a supreme being. In other words, to attain enlightenment. The supreme motivation for a practitioner is to attain enlightenment, the full and complete state of omniscience. Those of a middling those who could be called middling beings, those are striving for a lesser goal, and that is for their own liberation from the suffering realms of samsara. So they are not striving for a supreme goal or for the supreme goal, but rather for a middling goal, and that is complete liberation from their samsaric experience. Those who are striving, those genuine practitioners who are striving in the Dharma, but for the least of goals, who amongst the varying motivations have the least quality motivation, are the beings being referred to here, who are striving not to leave samsara. They are striving knowing they will remain in samsara, but they want a good rebirth, not to fall to the lower realms. So they are counted amongst genuine practitioners. But amongst genuine practitioners, their motivation is of the least expansive, the smallest of visions. This is the meaning then of least here. So least refers to the motivation rather than to the being is being least.
Jizada kibu raptan, kibu dingdan, kibu tama said me down. Jizada kibu rap said the kibu chambo, kibu jing said the letter kibu jing, that kibu tama said the kibu chumu said, 제대 기부 중원 디난데다 중원 개발자셔야 돼. 어두시네. 제 당연히 민디디 주차기도 함.
So therefore, a being striving for a supreme goal is called a great practitioner. A being who's striving for the supreme goal, they are therefore called a great practitioner. An average practitioner is striving for a middling goal, so they will be the middle scope. They're striving for the average goal amongst the three. And the least of beings is a practitioner striving for the smallest of goals. Therefore, their motivation is the least amongst the three.
기부 중원다, 중원 잠다, 기부 중원 개발자나, 기부 딩다, 기부 침보세, 어두시네 마 송제다, 간실량도 기부 딩라면도다, 기부 중원다, 중원 잠다, 기부 딩세로다, 기부 딩세데 가르치라기래서데 니마 송야 차거로와 니자다 된마 두와 녜레 라스 녜레라 니 코알은 로와 잠게 타르바다 탐지켄바 세데 녜레 세데라 저기 코르위드에 타르바스 잠데라 녜레 세고레 네 녀모 바샤데 제바 빵제 산교코 바데야 네 녜레 세데 녜바 레바서 녜레 세레 당로레 예와 체바데 니차고레 녜레 라니 코알을 조와 잠게 타르바다 탐지켄바 오세데.
That then concludes the presentation here on the initial capacity or the small scope. So there are the three types of practitioners. There's a mere person of initial capacity, the special person of initial capacity, and those who are engaging in the training shared with a practitioner of initial capacity. So there are these three different types. Now we come moving from the small, we move to the middle. And looking then at Lama Tsongkhapa's text, there are two types of definite goodness. So definite goodness was a term we had on the previous page, near the start of this outline. And I'm just going to change two words here the meaning is the same, but it's to what is usually used. The freedom that is a liberation from samsara and omniscience. So these are the two types of definite goodness, and this was mentioned briefly last night and this morning. The first is the freedom that is liberation from samsara, where the practitioner attains complete liberation from samsara, or the omniscient state of Buddhahood, where the afflictions are abandoned together with their seeds and imprints.
지게 녀벌려발라도 녀모버 코 둥아 윤주 녀모버 사보나 제바 차상 빵차바 빵바 녀바 시도 빵바 시다 지서 타쳐봐서 녀바 빵바 디니게 빵차바자 디니게 빵비게다 디히데레 녀바 려바 디니 녀바 려바레세 디니게 빵베 빵바 타르밤 디 아니 예시디게 려바 녀바 려바레스 지자 려바 마제 녀바 려바레스 려바나네 야가리레사지 녀바 려바스 디니 베네가 저기 타르바 마토바이네 띵이진 곰제 저기 띵이진 곰 되네 지게 지마 안지 제 샘르르 진 디기 주야다 디네 영화제 려부로와 려바는 야부스요라 제가 려바레디 안에 녀모 비고 사본데 제 마바바이네야 원주와 파 까제 원주와 제 원도 줄마 주지 까제 까투베네 안지 그 강하지 방고 시고와 지난 지수에 려바들이 이나 녀바 려바 말해서 디네 지금 람 되네요. 정원 요모 봉원주와 삼고 토제 수수기 디기로 주축되베네 대수는 야보레스 려바들 있는 녀발려바 말아서 사본데 제가 빵요 말해서 다 사본데 제가 빵요도 녀발려바 자 그래서 진짜 탈비고 고마디 요모바 사본데 제가 빵바인자 녀발려바래 And Sanji Gobadian, Yumobo, Savon and Java Bamba, Bamba Maza Basa, the Java Bamba, the Neva Lava. Niga gas and Neva Lava, Tarbi Gobadia, Neva Lava, Sanji Gobada, Neva Lava, Imbi Gimza, Niga Yomoba, Korean Yomo, Savon and Java Bambi, Bonsawa in the Neva Lava, or Neva Lava. Neva Lava, so do it, Lava, and the Yagas go to war. Cousin. 牛毛把沙包呢，这把毛帮这那个的温酒定义中温酒花干下边呢，刚刚我试过的，现在第一月的，现在的2把2把的买的，也不的，现在也学的也买的，是2把2把的买的是。
To talk then about the meaning of this term, definite goodness. So as a translator, I'll need to also try and define these words to match with the meaning of what Geshe says. So this first word, definite, how it's translated is fine. It's translated either as definite or certain, and it's the same word that you know from definite emergence. So that's the first term. The second term, though, is a little bit more problematic to translate. So it's translated as goodness, which is a translation of the word. Here, perhaps another translation would be excellence. It can also be translated as wholesome or what else is there that's suitable? Yeah, maybe or good or well. So it's a word that can be translated in many ways, hence it's a bit problematic. So as goodness or as excellence, as good or well or wholesome. But perhaps excellence will work better with the meaning of the term definite goodness, or definite excellence. So then what it refers to is a state where the afflictions have been abandoned together with their seeds. So the state of definite goodness or definite excellence is a state where the afflictions have been abandoned together with their seeds. And it's the term here then of goodness or excellence refers to the quality of the happiness that a being who has attained or achieved definite goodness will experience. The implied meaning is that this of the term excellence here is that it is, if something is excellent, it's clearly superior to something that is not excellent, something ordinary. So this term goodness, that I think is better translated as excellence, what it is referring to is the quality of happiness that is experienced by the being who has achieved definite excellence. In that, because they've abandoned the afflictions together with their seeds, their happiness is lasting, it's stable. It's not like ordinary happiness, so that's the comparative, the non-excellent happiness, which fluctuates, which comes and goes, which is temporary. This is a lasting happiness. So, for example, another state that one can experience a greater happiness is that of when one achieves single points of concentration and one then trains so as to suppress all one's afflictions. One there does also achieve a state of excellence or goodness, because whilst this happiness is not lasting, because the seeds of the afflictions have not been abandoned, it is also an elevated state of happiness, but it is not yet definite. So this is the component that means that it is not lasting. And again, because the afflictions together with their seeds have not been abandoned, rather the afflictions have been suppressed. The afflictions of the desire realm have been suppressed. So to repeat this, to try and hope that it's a bit clear, definite goodness. Goodness refers to a form of happiness that is superior to what ordinary beings experience. It's lasting, it's stable. And if it is definite, it is that of where it will never change. Whereas if it's just a state of excellence, that happiness, for example, to the suppression of the afflictions, will eventually end. But when the excellence is definite, it is lasting happiness. That will never end. And it is lasting because it is the state of liberation where the afflictions, together with the seeds, have been abandoned. All that being said, now something in addition, because as we saw, there are two types of definite goodness, or two types of definite excellence. There's the liberation there is the freedom that is the mere liberation from samsara, or maybe instead of mere, the translation here would be better of only, the freedom that is only liberation from samsara. So there is a greater form of definite excellence, and that is omniscience. Because how omniscience differs from a liberation is that not only are the afflictions together with the seeds of the afflictions abandoned, but the imprints or stains of those seeds are also abandoned. Both of these are states of definite excellence, in that it's a superior form of happiness, and it is definite in that it is lasting, it will never dissipate. But the state of omniscience is superior because the happiness, the goodness, the excellence is superior because the imprints of the afflictions are also abandoned. To further explain the meaning of this term definite, it is the same as when something, an object, is realized with a valid cognizer. When something is realized with a valid cognizer, it is known. It's definitely known. So, for example, if you find outside a piece of gold, immediately one will be very excited about having found a gold nugget. But the first thing one will need to do with this piece of gold is to go to a jeweler to make sure that it is actually gold and not fool's gold. A jeweler will be able to examine it and will be able to give rise to a valid cognizer, this particular high quality consciousness that knows with certainty, that is definite, that this is a nugget of gold, or it is definitely fool's gold. So this then, realizing something with a valid cognizer is the same as this term definite, in that it is, definite or certain. But in the context of definite excellence or definite goodness, it refers to the goodness or the excellence, that quality of happiness, as being something that will never dissipate. Why? Because it is the happiness or the peace of mind that is attained when the afflictions, together with the seeds of the afflictions, are abandoned. In other words, a state of liberation. Or the afflictions, together with their seeds and the imprints of the seeds, are abandoned, the state of omniscience. That excellence, that happiness, is never going to dissipate. Hence, it is definite.
아당은 저기 내내기다 딩이지 곰제다 내내기 요모바 사번의 제바 마방하지 그냥 저 시라 남바진이 람라 시라 남바지 감고말이야 시와다 내라 되대가서 되바티 배 주견다지 내내 곰이 딩이지 곰야셔와 내내 곰비게 또 이제 시라 남바진이 놀라고는데 니 나가 저게 낭바당 낭바면바 차상로 신의 토관술이야 뭐신임지 토관술로 곰야 곰고래 내내 곰제네 뭐신임주 토관주의 곰고래 내내게 곰 내내게 람데 바 곰여도 아주 대비 녀모보 원주와 차상 까르고래 지산 대비 녀모보 원주 규례에 바 까르고래 지산디 가와서 대비 녀모 원주와 빵바세고래 이내 사본여다 원주와 빵바래 지산 디네 원주 대비 녀모 원주 규매 바인장 내내 그 강함하고세서 봐 지산 녀모보 원도 마주도 내내 시대로 연구로 봐 지산 디네자 디네 대비 녀모 원주와 빵바디 다데 아니 레바레베서 야구레스 레바레 이나 네발레바데 말해서 네발레바 마임 비김자 가르선 녀모바 사번 마방바인자 양제고 딩이즈니 냠로도 양제 녀모보 원주 연구래서 제자디 양 연구래 제자디네 시라나마진에 람라티네 녀모보 원주와 마방샤디 레바레 네발레바 말해서 다디 제자데 네발레바 라면도 치티기 돈나라 양제 레바지 여바지 딩고래 제사디 녀모 원주 방바디다 방바디 레바레데 네발레바 말해서 네바 레바 타쳐바 말해 그래서 양제 녀고 긴 딩이지 냠로도 고 양제 고 녀모바 원주 양에 강아 체용으로와 제사 네발레바 말해서 다 녀모바 사본다제 디 다음에 딩이지 동반이다 다음에 로 곰발에 되는 녀모바 사본다제 방바이나 다양 영혼의 교회가 말로 녀모 뭔데 싸워지는 교회 매발에 매발사다디 대화디라 레바레 네바레 마도 양자 안에 강아 용아 요말 세지 또 나디 숨어다 개발로지
To repeat something from a couple of segments ago, a form of excellence or goodness that is not definite is that which can be attained with single-pointed concentration. Not merely the attainment of single-pointed concentration, but having attained single-pointed concentration, one engages in a particular type of meditation where one reflects on the benefits of the higher realms, where one looks at the higher stages of the form realm and sees those as desirable, and looks at one's current level, where one starts would be in the desire realm, and seeing as the faults of the desire realm, giving rise to the wish to achieve a subtler level of concentration, one of the form realm. And one could progress through the various levels of the form realm. So where one attains the consciousness of the form realm, whilst being within physically the desire realm. The outcome of this meditation is that one suppresses the afflictions of the desire realm. One also attains clairvoyances, but the result of suppressing the afflictions of the desire realm is that one abides in the desire realm with this mind of the form realm without being disturbed by the afflictions. They have all been suppressed. So one is here abiding in a state of excellence or of goodness, but it is not definite. Why? Because the afflictions have only been suppressed. The seeds still abide on one's continuum. They have not been abandoned. Which means when the single-pointed concentration, that dissipates, the afflictions will once again ripen, and one will once again suffer from the desire realm afflictions. But the attainment of this, so that is a state of goodness or excellence, where the happiness is superior to what was experienced before. But because the afflictions have only been suppressed and their seeds have not been abandoned, they will ripen again, the afflictions, when the single-pointed concentration dissipates. But the way to achieve actual definite goodness is to develop single-pointed concentration, develop it further into meditative insight, but then in particular to then cultivate the wisdom directly realizing emptiness. Then when one has developed the wisdom directly realizing emptiness, which necessarily is conjoined with the union of calm, abiding, meditative insight, then definite goodness is achieved because the afflictions together with their seeds are abandoned. Then that goodness or excellence is definite. It will not dissipate. One will not ever again have one's happiness, one's bliss disturbed by the afflictions, because the seeds of the afflictions have been completely eradicated. Therefore, there are these two types of definite excellence: the freedom that is only liberation from samsara and omniscience. Then Lama Tsongkhapa continues, all the teachings that pertain to the vehicles of the Shravakas, or in English hearers, and Pratyeka Buddhas, or in English solitary realizers, are included in the cycle of Dharma teachings for persons of genuine medium capacity, or the teachings that are shared in common with persons of medium capacity.
대다 투모의 최고 두세 디나 뒤로 그래서 제가 zel레다 코위 가서 코위 동안에 죄제 요모바 사본에 제바 빵바데 냠네 톱고리에서 디고 디톱에 된다로 송예게 최대라 아니 상지게 송비 최대라 야나 아니 기부 등기 투몽베게 최원의 최고래 야나 기부 등다 투모의 람이 땜베 최대 최고래 제 디니마도 요 말해서 그러다 요모바 사본에 제바 빵베 빵바 당보 요모바 사본에 제바 빵베 빵바세디 디토쿠리 디토예게 람냠네 디디 제고래서 송예게 상이 최지 송예 최지어로 디 송예게 최디 야나 기부 등기 람문에 기부 등기 최송예게 최고나 뒤고래서 최문에 최고래서 야나 기부 등다 투모에게 람예림바 땡게 최차그래서 디니용고래서 디나데 고시게 인여로 기부 등다 투모에 람땡 기부 등기 문에게 기부 등기 문에게 람예림바 땡게 최 기부 등다 투모에 람예림바 땡게 최 제사 상예기 타르바단 탐지기 가서 콜외 동안 녀모바 사본에 제바 빵베 빵바데 토베기 된다라 최송예기 저러와 최송예 저월들라 야나 디 기부 중기 가서 기부 중기 람문에 토베기 된다 송요레스 야나 문에 매나야 야나 징다 투모에 람예린 바데기 최송나 디나 뒤로 그래지래 그래서 다 발사
Because the purpose of this section is presented in the first part of the sentence, all the teachings that pertain to the vehicles, because this is the specific outline that we have here. So the teachings that pertain to the vehicles of the Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas are included in the cycle of Dharma teachings. So this refers to practitioners who have reflected on the Buddhist teachings that present the sufferings of samsara in its entirety, as well as the causes for the sufferings of samsara, and have given rise, and these practitioners have given rise to a determination to abandon those causes. And those causes are the afflictions together with their seeds. Because if they merely suppress the afflictions, as we've just heard, definite goodness is not achieved, merely goodness. Whereas if the afflictions are abandoned through the eradication of their seeds, then complete liberation from the entirety of the sufferings of samsara is achieved. So all those teachings are included here. All the teachings that pertain to the vehicles of Shravakas or hearers and Pratyeka Buddhas or solitary realizers are included in the cycle of Dharma teachings for persons of genuine medium capacity, or the teachings that are shared in common with persons of medium capacity. Lasso.
Jibu Ting we said, Dagaje Jibu Ting we said, Kowe Dunga Tada le, Tarbiki Tarba de la Yundin da, Kowe Dunga le, da Kowe Dunga le Guen da, Kowe Dunga le Targus Guen da, Dele Targus and be Tarbadi, Tarba, Bangpege, no Kowe Dunga, I you. Nyomoba Sabana Jeba Bambi Bamba Togudu Sambiki, Daniel Dumba Dea Randundo, Rangi Dunda, Randundo, Rani, Kowe Dunga Tada le Treasure, Tarbi, Goban Togudu Sambi, Samnatan, Gaza Jurwa, Diniki, Nijun Samba Juma Member Jesarda, Kolam Jula Jesare, Nijun Kowe Dunga le Guen Tong, Dene Tarbi, Tarba Togudu Sabiki, Daniel Dumba Juma Member Lam Jula Jesar. Yene, Diana, Rang Jibudon, that Sanji Gobang Toku Mad, Chitang, that Korea Dunga de la Toku, Dele, Tarbi Taba Toku to Sebig, Rani Dunda, Rani Jibudon, Korea Dunga, Tarba Donegi, Geshe, Di Yamlin Jetuan, Gaza de la Kibu Jings or the Kibu Jing. Kibu Winnie, the Kibu Jings or. Some singing in the Kibu Jings that I did some Lagoma, the Kibu Jings or.
So, practitioner of medium capacity, practitioner of medium spiritual capacity, they have engaged in deep study and reflection on these teachings of the Buddha, which present the entirety of the sufferings of samsara, and they've come to recognize that, recognizing there is no experience that is worthy of striving for if one is still in samsara. Because that experience, whether it's a rebirth or an experience in a rebirth, that happiness that comes through that is fleeting. It will not last. So having recognized this, as well as recognize the cause for why they are bound within this process of uncontrolled death and rebirth in samsara, the afflictions together with their seeds, they've developed a determination to abandon the afflictions together with their seeds. And they have already cultivated a path. So in their continuum, they have an actual path. And what makes it a path of a practitioner of intermediate capacity or medium capacity is that their goal is liberation from samsara in its entirety, and here's the crucial part, for themselves alone. So they are striving for their own individual liberation. They will know about Buddhahood. They'll probably know how Buddhahood is achieved, but they will see the attainment of Buddhahood as something that's beyond them, something that they believe, I cannot do that. So therefore, for them, Buddhahood is off the table. They are striving solely for their own individual liberation, but they are looking to abandon their samsaric existence in its entirety and attain complete liberation from samsara, but for themselves and themselves alone.
Tarbi Koba Rangi Dundala, Rani da Korea Dungal Dreshe, that Tarbas Togodu, Tarbamatova, another, the Jigmin Sempe, some Daja, Soso Rani, and Jibu, Tarbi Koba Dundu Yerche, Lam Yamle, Chetubaza, the Niki, Gasatikale Gibu Jings or that Gibu Jings.
So there are two types of practitioners who are of who will be classified as practitioners of intermediate or middling capacity, and they are the hearers or the Shravakas and the solitary realizers, the Pratyeka Buddhas. So what makes them again practitioners of intermediate capacity is that they are striving for themselves and themselves alone to gain liberation from the sufferings of samsara. So the key feature is, firstly, that they are striving to abandon or gain liberation or freedom from the sufferings of samsara, but the second key feature, for themselves alone. So there are these two types of practitioners, the Shavaka and Pratyeka Buddha. And there is a pervasion that a practitioner of a middling capacity is either a hero or a solitary realizer. There is no other option. There is no other type of practitioner who is a practitioner of intermediate capacity.
tarpa toya dondala nyamle chi chue sonya gi chue di da givu jingi chue ngwe ji je da koron ju ge da dindi gi nyan de dang ran ja koron ju gi nyamle je gi jinba chu chu so ba zun le sam de ne xie da la so ba de su lam de ge da givu jingi lam ngwe ni de.
So these practitioners, the heroes and solitary realizers, are striving for mere liberation. And it's mere liberation because it's for themselves alone. They're striving for their own individual liberation. And to achieve it, they engage in all the teachings that pertain to their vehicle of the heroes and solitary realizers, the Shavaka and Pratyeka Buddhas. So they will generate an actual path. They are actual practitioners of middling capacity, and they are genuine practitioners of middling capacity, and they will cultivate an actual path in their continuum through engaging in the various trainings.
Chizingila de Jimba, the Chudun Sobo, something share up Yamne, Yandu, Ranja, Horanzo, Yamne, Lam Yamne, Karaji was in Jimba, Chudun Sobo, something share up to Yamne Chigurua, Chizan Horanzo, Yandu, Ranjagi, Yamne, Lam de Kela, Takibu Tinga, Lam Winnie, as this one.
And the trainings that they engage in that lead to the cultivation of an actual path are 6. And of the six, 4 have been mentioned already, but these are now done with the motivation for individual liberation. So they'll engage in training in generosity, ethical restraint, patience, joyous perseverance, and in addition, concentration and the wisdom realizing emptiness or the wisdom realizing selflessness. Training in these 6 leads to them achieving an actual path, a path of a practitioner of genuine middle capacity or medium spiritual capacity.
Na gibu jingda tumo wa sidi, na gibu jingda tumo wa sidi, da gibu jing nyamlen lam nyamlen cheyende, gibu jingda tumo wa sidi, da tewa chenpe ki chuen nyamlen cheyegi duanyer ki dunpo yoba che. Chesen da korong de chue tewa chenpe chuen nyamlen cheyeba la, cheyegi duanyer ki dunpo yoba che. Deli ya jenju sebe yingo wa yoba re. lam gyula ma jeba yungure jebu tumo lam chesa de dang korong lam gyula ke mena ya korong da jebu tikaso tewa chenbi gi chue na janju semji nyamlen che gi donye dumba yoba dene ge donye dumba yoba de da tewa chenbi chue nyamlen che gora de nyamlen che la nye le ya anu koryo dunga le ya kowa le gyön song kowa le tarduge samba gi ngejung ge gora 코알라 타르드가 삼바기 오르와 제가 데니고 로 장야래야 당보 코알이야 아니 코위 코와게 나송의 동하다 코위 귀엔데 코위 귀엔데 봤다 진짜 코알레 탈바세데 코알레데 탈고도 셈비기 탈드게 삼바 예중계래야 는 데니게 삼바 장투에 가사텔라 기부 진다 가서 기부 징마 데니게 람 냠는체 삼로 람 가서 람 ngwene de ma nyamlen che rimba chorwa dela ni gibu chungda tumo la msi orda de gibu thinda tumo la basna kowa la ngejung 고음지 코알레 타르도 코로도 타르고도 코알레 타르지는 녀몽 바사번의 제바 빵바데 토고도 셈비게 냠는 제인디 년되다 라제디기 디 공고로와 예중 공고로와 디나시 산지 요고번 토발에 당보 예중의 소소 랑게 때도 소소 랑이 때도 동안 나타디 삼당 고고래 지산 디 삼당제 당고원자 디니고 타르 산지 요고번 토예기 전주심베 람냠네 제 되버 유겐텔에 당보 안에 코웨레卷到 코웨레 卷通 디네 코웨레 타르게 삼바게 로 장고고로와 디 장에게 장 디네게 장비기 람 냠네기 림바쇼로와 데라 기부틴다 투모에 람시고다 이 람원의 인과예요 말에 기부틴다 투모에 람데라 람원의 인과예요 말에 기부틴다 투모에 삼바장와시로 원의 인과예요 말에서 탈바 톱고그레시가 말 코의 동안의卷통시 코의 동안의卷은 코의 동안의 탈비게 탈고도 선배 삼다죠와 지 탈바세의 년되다 란지기 탈바 대점말 탈바세 녀몽 빵비게 빵바데 톱고도 선배 삼다 탈바셔로와 코의 동안의 탈치나 코의 녀몽 사번의 제바 빵베 빵바 톱고도 선배 삼주라 디 탈고도 선배 삼다죠와 데니게 삼다도 기부 투모에 삼바 장와세 오르다 기부 투모에 삼바 장와 삼바 이제 그래서 디 삼로디 기부 투모비게 기부 딩디게 년되다 란제디게 공고로 와디 디 공고로 디 나신지 그런 게 된 삼당고요 봐서 네 기부 투모에 삼바 장와세 오르 데니게 손야 되다 디고 디 냠는 제 손셔봐 되다 기부 딩다 투모에게 최세고 기부 딩다 투모에 마도 기부 쟁기 최대비게 송체가 말에 기부진다 투모에 냠내지기 림바대야게 최고치기 콜로시오데 송데라
And as already been read here, we see that, well, let's read that same sentence again. All the teachings that pertain to the vehicles of Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas are included in the cycle of Dharma teachings for persons of genuine middle capacity. So that who is a person of genuine medium capacity, we've looked at. Now to look at the second type of person, or the teachings that are shared in common with persons of medium capacity. So the second type of practitioner, the teachings that are shared in common with persons of medium capacity, they will be training in these same teachings, but there will be a key difference. They will have a motivation not of a Shrivaka or a Pratyeka Buddha. They will have a motivation derived from the Mahayana, from the Mahayana teachings. But they will be engaging in the teachings that pertain to that pertain to or are shared with Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas. But their motivation is vastly different from that of the hearers and solitary realizers, because their motivation is from the Mahayana Dharma. But they are engaging in the trainings shared with the genuine practitioners of medium capacity. So this kind of practitioner does not yet need to be a bodhisattva. So they have not yet generated bodhicitta, but they have a motivation of the Mahayana Dharma. So they have an aspiration to become a bodhisattva. But in order to become a bodhisattva, they have received the excellent guidance which tells them to become a bodhisattva, you have to engage first in the trainings which are shared with the practitioner of intermediate capacity. In other words, you have to cultivate those trainings within yourself, but under the influence or conjoined with the motivation of the Mahayana. So with the motivation of the Mahayana, they will receive teachings on and engage in extensive meditation on the sufferings of samsara and the causes of those suffering, giving rise to the mind of definite emergence, the determination to emerge from the suffering realms of samsara, and the wish to attain liberation from the afflictions together with their seeds. Or maybe, no, let's rephrase that. With the wish to abandon the afflictions together with their seeds. That is their motivation, that within which they are now genuinely striving to attain. But it's within the confines or conjoined to a motivation of the Mahayana, although they are yet to cultivate an actual Mahayana path within themselves. So again, this practitioner will have maybe you could say a general motivation of the Mahayana because they haven't yet developed bodhicitta. But they know from their teachings that they have, in order to generate bodhicitta, they have to first develop definite emergence, which is the determination that I must abandon suffering and its causes. In other words, the afflictions together with their seeds. I have to abandon the afflictions together with their seeds. I need to eradicate my own suffering. So this is the motivation they will develop within themselves, and thereby will engage in the trainings shared with the practitioner of initial capacity: generosity, ethical restraint, patience, joyous perseverance, concentration, and the wisdom realizing emptiness. So they engage in those trainings that are shared with a practitioner of initial capacity. And whilst they will develop those qualities within them, what they have, their mental qualities, will not be labeled as a path. And the reason it will not be labeled as a path is because they are striving to eventually become a bodhisattva. That is the path they want to cultivate. So whilst they will have cultivated single-pointed concentration, and that will be conjoined with their definite emergence, whilst that is suitable to be a path for a genuine medium scope practitioner, it is not labeled a path, although the quality of the mind is the same, because this practitioner is striving to eventually become a bodhisattva. So therefore, this practitioner engages in the Dharma, or it's expressed here as a cycle of Dharma teachings for persons of genuine medium capacity, although they are a practitioner of striving to become a bodhisattva eventually, and therefore they are engaging in the trainings shared with a practitioner of intermediate capacity.
장슈 셈 토비하기 냠는제 그 듬버 등이 여바체 람귤에 맞게바체 대수기 냠는제 당보 안에 코발이야 내중 코리卷동 코발이야卷다 코발에 탈비게 탈바 토부도 셈비게 데네 삼바 장야지요 냠는제 삼바 장야지요와 데라 기부 중이다 투모에 삼바 장와라고 디 삼바디 람스 기부 투모 람스 민다그메 말아 삼로 당하디 두신 삼로디 장고래서 삼바 장 기부리나 투모의 삼바래세 데데스 투모의 삼바 장와서 디 데니게 디가 스타트 진바던 수준 세바 전제 디기시고 말에 저 가르쳐서는 코알레 균총 코버게 마소다 하다 미게와 있네 레다 녀모 옹이 기텐줄 동아기 라신레도 와서 제가 동아야 삼다 델레 다 타고도 샘비게 델레 마탄데 지금은 샘비게 탈두게 삼바게야 돼 디 람마 귤라마 기베 내가 그래야 데니게 삼바 차야디 다고 기부티나 투모에 삼바 장와서 오르디 디 삼바 장와서 디고 람가 차겨 말디 디시메데 제사 디시겨 디시메데 가서 또 좋았을 삼바 차야 돼 코알레 코위 균도 델레 탈비 탈고도 선비게 된 삼바 차야디마도 진바 추준수비기 시가 말데.
So again, the practitioner that is referred to here, shared in common with persons of medium capacity, they are yet to generate bodhicitta, but this is their heart wish to become bodhisattvas. But in order to fulfill this goal, to become a bodhisattva, their teachers guide them to reflect extensively on the sufferings of samsara and its causes so as to generate definite emergence. And they will train to the point where they do generate definite emergence. But unlike a genuine practitioner of medium capacity, that definite emergence is not called a path. Rather, it is said that they have a way of thinking that is shared with a practitioner of intermediate capacity. And to develop this way of thinking that is shared with a practitioner of intermediate capacity, they engage in those Dharma teachings that are shared with that practitioner, reflecting on the sufferings of samsara and its causes, giving rise to the determination to abandon the afflictions together with their seeds. That is definite emergence. And again, whilst they generate uncontrived definite emergence, it is not called a path for them, although it is for the practitioner of a genuine middle scope practitioner.
Korong dunba dunye de da chanshu sem tewa chibi chue nyamle dunye dunba yoba che chisa di nyamle cheba la nye le ya san jikpa chue sonyo korong korong ane koyu dunga la nyime ta gore koyu dunga la nyime ta dene kowa le ya yuen gom samta dene an dele tar kudu sempe tar duge samba jang kore sayadi du shima sonyo ki chue yorwa di songdi da chue di gibu chunda tumo wege korsiya sonyo ki chue chagore tumo mado gibu dingi chue sonyo chue chagore ma gibu chunda tumo wege kor sonyo ki chue di esi wada.
So this person then, their aspiration is to generate bodhicitta, uncontrived bodhicitta, and thereby enter into the paths of the Mahayana, to enter into the paths of the Bodhisattva. But to do so, they are guided to engage in the trainings shared with a practitioner of intermediate capacity, and therefore they engage in the cycle of Dharma teachings that are shared with practitioners of intermediate capacity.
제자다 상이기 코에 동안을 죄제 코에 동안을 죄고 될래 탈배 탈바 톱고도 새벽에 송예기 송예 최되라 다 송사 강사 니마도요 말와 송사 강사 니로와 직디 코로랑게 마 탈바점 톱고 새벽에 마라랑 탈바점 톱고 새벽에 탈바 되는 예 되게 지여와다 데니기 돈예 제대 강사 직제 직라 강사 직디 땅아 코에 동안을 가소래 나 산지고마 토고도 장유세메 냠라 산지고마 토고도 셈베게 삼다타지 니용고로 하다 람라 마슈베 내가브리네 니가 람규라 게메베네 데니게 삼다타 가사지 니여바자 지산 델야 안 산지기 코롱랑 코르베 동알을 탈바짬 톱되긴 톱되고 되니 유행 가사딜라 난 탈바 토예게 된다랴 최송야디 다 탈바 기부 딩게 람 냠네 제림바 원네 송거로 원네 책거로와 최고원의 기부 증기 남기 림바 타바 토비하게 최고로 원인의 최고래. 나 강사 근데 지금 산지고 뭐 토고도세 태과 침비 냠는 제고 준비 되니 돈이 두번 유견 될이야. 안 결혼 디제반은 코유 동안을捐통 코로 동안捐의 코알레 탈비 탈도게 삼바 장고래서 되네 손에 지어와 니 손에디 기부 증이다 투모에 삼바 장요 투모에 취유고 꼴마도 기부 증 외기 최고를 차기요 말이에요. 그래서 송사 가사 코롱래 군롱카하여와 세상에 전디 송디야 직디 너 코롱 탈바 잠 돈돈 예지간 가사텔라 다 탈바 토예기 돈달라 니종 공고그리 세디 직 도시는 소야디 안 기부 충외 외걸 기부 가사 기부 징 외네 초어듯이 다 군로 가사 하산이고 토에 장유심 냠는 지긴집에 디 냠는 타바침이 취 냠는 돈이 좀 요건들라 아니래 그런데 코발라 견단데 될이야 탈도기 내종 공고리에 소야디 기부진도 투모에 취고 소야리에서 제자다 상이기 코에 동안을 탈바 토에게 소에 취되라 최송사 강사 니마도 매도와 니마도 매바자 데니를 소야기 탈바 토 코에 동안을 탈바 토에게 최송에게 취되라 안에 기부 증기 최원 소에 원내 차로 그러나 기부진다 투모에게 취고 소에게 마도 디니마도 줬어요 말해서 디니 dü그래서 dü금전들이다.
Yeah, we've heard then about those who give rise to the determination to gain liberation from the afflictions together with their seeds. There are two types of people who give rise to such a determination. The first are those who are striving for their own individual liberation, who want to gain for themselves to gain liberation from the sufferings of samsara. And they will be either a Shavaka or Pratyeka Buddha, a hero or solitary realizer. They are the first type who are striving for their own individual liberation. The second type of practitioner, who also gives rise to a determination to abandon the afflictions together with their seeds, is someone who aspires to become a bodhisattva and thereby has as their final goal enlightenment. So there are these two types of people alone, those who want to strive for individual liberation and those who want to attain enlightenment. They both need to generate the determination to abandon the afflictions together with their seeds. So the first type of practitioner is the hera or solitary realizer, and they are striving for their own individual liberation, and they are a person of genuine medium capacity. So they will give rise to a path of a person of medium capacity, which is the mind of definite emergence conjoined with calm abiding. The second type of person, they are an aspirant to the bodhisattva paths. So whilst they also develop the determination to abandon afflictions together with their seeds and thereby develop the definite emergence conjoined with calm abiding, that mind is not called a path because it is not a path to their goal. Their goal is not individual liberation. Their goal is enlightenment. So the quality of these minds are the same. Definite emergence conjoined with calm abiding. But it's only called a path in the first type of practitioner, that of genuine medium capacity, the Shavaka or Pratyeka Buddha, because that is a mental path leading to their goal. Whereas the second type of practitioner, the aspirant bodhisattva, that mind, definite emergence conjoined with calm abiding, is not called a path because it doesn't lead to their goal, which is enlightenment for the sake of others. But they've had to generate this mind as a prerequisite to then develop bodhicitta and enter into the Mahayana paths.
Siba Tadale, Joa Gene, Snoda Korigi, Mansondang, Dendro Hadami, Dunga, Siba Kora Tadalea, Joa Gene, Koali, Taro, Joa Gene, Siba Leon Drevi, Tarba, Rangi Dundo, Tobjer JD, said Rangi Dunda. Siba Leon Tarbadi, Soso Rangi Dundala, Rangi, Aran Tarba Toad, Aran Tarba Toad, Maran Tarba Toad, Simpi, the Rangi Dundala, Tarba Tobjer JD, Denigi. Jehan Gaza did Lam Yamleje de Kibu Ting said that Tobja Jede and Digi Garche Oresena Jede D Tap Labasumla Jupiter said it is a Rani Dondala, Kori Yomoba, Sabana Jepa Bangbe Bangba Tarba Tobia Dondala and Tap Yamlende Labasumla Yamlejigore said. Denigi Labasumla Yamleje Gaza that Lam Yejun Samba Juma May by Kiche, the Nigger Rani Tarba Tobos and Big Gomjin Yejun Samba Juma make Lam Gula Gene, Labasumi Yamle Jetu and Gaza Della, Gibu Jingsi, the edge that Gibu Jingu.
Lama Tsongkhapa then continues. Persons of medium spiritual capacity develop disenchantment with samsara as a whole, or samsara in its entirety. This is the first key point to pull out here, that the disenchantment that this practitioner needs to develop is towards all the realms, all the existences within samsara, coming to recognize that there is no happiness worth striving for as long as one's mind remains bound in samsara, because that happiness will never last. So therefore, this disenchantment with samsara needs to be towards samsara in its entirety or as a whole. And Lama Tsongkhapa continues, and make liberation from samsara their goal for their own welfare. And this then is the second key point, that their objective, their goal, is for their own individual liberation. So they see as they have as their primary motivation the attainment of liberation from the sufferings of samsara for themselves and themselves alone. And then lastly, how they achieve that. Therefore, they engage in its method or technique, the three trainings. So the three trainings is what they engage in. They train in these three practices so as to achieve their own individual liberation.
Alright, the nigga that you would think said in the like yes, that you would drink more soon the teacher. Now to that, don't you get Carson or someone together, the Jibu and Jibu Ting said that Jibu Gasore. Then I the Jibu Tingi. Lam Yamni Rimba said, and Jibuting the Tumo Lam Rimba, no chance said Tumo said. She said, the Jibuting said they can slag this and the Jibutingi said, can Lam Nugula Yavache, and the Rani Chigud and Dalia, Tabatoni, Samba Gula Yachene, and the Lam Yamni Chetu in Casa de Jibuting, the Dorduna, Manjus Pusu, Dushavan, Yadula Rajaybi, Carotilla, the Jibuting, or the Nishiliting, or Edge. Then Bendigo Rani Jigu Dondala, Tabatoni, Samba, Diadi, Gibu Jingi Tumo, Lam, the Lam to get you that Jimba Suzuva Chazanti, Simba, Lam Chazanki, Jinki Lam Chadurua. That in that Samba Chawa, Ladu, that Soso Rana, Tabachimbe, Kansagi, Che, Yamlinche, Dungi, Dumbi, the Dinyela, Niela, and the Korga Dungal, Guan, the Korga Dungal, Targo Sempic, Samba Chayadi, Jahan Kansa Dilla, Kansa. Bendigo Jaya Samba Telaya, give to the Tumo Samba Chawa said, no Dushene, City, that didn't show it in the Shivache. Then the Chenani on the Tua Unity on the Tua done.
To summarize then very briefly, what we've looked at this morning is these two types of practitioners of intermediate or medium capacity. So there are those which are genuine and those which engage in the trainings which are shared with a practitioner of medium or intermediate capacity. So a genuine practitioner of intermediate capacity, they have as their goal their own individual liberation. To give rise to such a goal, they will have reflected extensively on the sufferings of samsara in its entirety or as a whole, and as well as the causes that lead to being bound within this prison of samsara, and have come to recognize those causes or the afflictions together with their seeds. And they will give rise to a determination to emerge from this suffering realm, these suffering realms of samsara, by abandoning the afflictions together with their seeds. So they will generate definite emergence and will be conjoined with, they'll generate uncontrived definite emergence, which will be conjoined with calm abiding, and thereby they will give rise to an actual path of a genuine practitioner of medium capacity. Such a genuine practitioner who has generated an actual path will be one of two types: a hera or solitary realizer, a Shavaka or Patyeka Buddha. So that then is one type of practitioner we've looked at. The second is someone who has the aspiration to become a bodhisattva, to enter into the paths of the Mahayana or cultivate the paths of the Mahayana within and achieve the goal of the Mahayana, enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. But in order to become a bodhisattva, they first have to engage in the trainings shared with a practitioner of intermediate capacity. This is indispensable for them to become a bodhisattva. So they too, with the motivation to eventually become a bodhisattva, will meditate extensively on the sufferings of samsara, the causes of those sufferings, giving rise to determination to abandon the afflictions together with the seeds and imprints, and thereby generate uncontrived definite emergence, conjoined with calm abiding, though because this is not a consciousness that alone will lead to their final goal of enlightenment, it is not called a path. And so we'll leave it there then for this morning. If you have questions, then please feel free to ask.
Do they necessarily, seemed like these two beings that was mentioned, that the first one has definite emergence conjoined with calm abiding, and the second one has definite emergence combined with calm abiding as well. Is that necessary? Because I thought you could, on the path of accumulation, then develop calm abiding. Whereas if this were true in all cases, it would mean that you necessarily needed calm abiding before you went into the path.
So, is it required to generate calm abiding in order to generate or to attain the path of accumulation, or can calm abiding be attained on the path of accumulation?
간지레 초람 고묘디 권어서 초람 맞기냐래 내게 좀 두고 이래. 가서 걸어서 대신에 두고 이래. 당에 이 염도 세나면서 나도 염도 주나 말 나가지 예전도 공부하러 와. 당 예중이 좀 많이 받게 하시는 예중 공부로 와. 다딩엘로 초람 마도니래 신이 고구려 고구 말을한다. 이제 신이 두 마시 신이 두고 이래.
Calm abiding needs to be attained prior to the attainment of the path of accumulation, as well as uncontrived bodhicitta. So prior to the path of accumulation.
근데 자주 샘 규례 개발은 신이 두 토고래 세대 배신나 세고요래 배신나라. 자주 샘 규례 개발라 신이 토고래 세대. 그래서 대민이 연퇴기 초람 토와라 신이 토고래 세대 되니게 이 배신나라 세고 제마소대 이내 같이 토고 이르습니다.
But this is my understanding from my own studies. I haven't seen it specifically stated that in order to attain the path of accumulation of a hero or a solitary realizer, that calm abiding needs to be attained prior to the path of accumulation. But this is my assumption. What is very clearly stated, though, is that for the bodhisattva to attain the bodhisattva path of accumulation, calm abiding needs to be attained prior to the path of accumulation.
Peter.
I get confused with the numbers of trainings. Can you briefly say what are the three trainings?
Can you repeat what the three trainings are?
띵이징이 라바 가서 오래 이제 그 수ring이 라바 띵이징이 시작이 라바 숨지요. 되면 그지 다 라바스나 미니 신 치르비기 띵이징이 라바스 제고 다 간질에 라바 숨세디 띵이징이 라바다 가서 수ring이 라바 띵이징이 시작이 라바 숨지요.
So the three trainings refers to the trainings in firstly ethics, secondly in concentration, thirdly in wisdom. So these are often verbally expressed by myself and others as the three higher trainings. Only occasionally in Tibetan is it written as the higher training, but it would be referring to higher trainings here, because that differentiates between Buddhists and non-Buddhists. So generally, when we see the three trainings, that is what is written in Tibetan, but as an abbreviation referring to the three higher trainings of ethics, concentration, and wisdom. Okay, then thank you. Enjoy your lunch.